retirement. I don't long for retirement. It's not even on my radar. Like you described, I do long for the freedom to do things with my wife and family differently, more frequently.
Keep
Enough
going.
of that conversation.
Keep going. DOA. Wait a minute. Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you very much.
65.
65 today.
That's half of 130.
I'm not a math guy.
West. All right. So 3 West Side grads here. Omaha West Side. Can't do
Throw
this
up throw up the W. Is
That's
that what
right.
Is that our?
Throw up the W.
Okay.
That's, hey, big birthday.
Well, just 3 guys that graduated at all from West Side is pretty impressive.
It's a hard school to
When you
graduate
get,
from.
yeah.
It is.
It was challenging.
It is. So here we are.
Yeah, man, it's good to be back.
What are you going to do on your birthday?
We can talk about that. My wife and I are going to just do a little day trip.
Yeah. Where are you going?
We're going out to Nebraska City. Just look at the leaves. That's what old people do. We look at leaves. I'm going to probably have some pureed food, something like that. Just like at Haven House when I used to work at the nursing home.
She'll wheel you in.
I'm the guy now that they inject out of the syringe, and oh, that's delicious.
Stop.
Applesauce, I think, is on the menu.
That'll be
yeah,
fun.
man. I woke up this morning, went through my normal morning routine. Drank my salt water, my Element. Took the dog for a walk and drank my coffee out on the front porch, looking at some sunlight. The usual Huberman stuff.
Yeah.
That always sets a great tone for my day, and
Get you in the right frame of mind.
it does. I
do you
don't
think-
exercise in the morning anymore, so I don't do that. But
Did you wake up feeling differently? That you're like, oh, wait a sec, this is a milestone birthday, or just like, hey, it's just.
I'm
another
aware
day?
that today is my birthday,
Yeah.
and so I guess that's to some degree good
That's
that you
good.
at least you have that awareness, that consciousness, but not necessarily. When I wake up, I always do a body check. I don't know if you do that, but I run through how my body feels before I get out of bed.
Huh.
And I've been doing that for probably 35 years.
Oh,
That's
really?
something I do a body check, because if you're in tune with how your body is supposed to feel, you can usually kind of I check each of the systems,
Mental scan. Then.
do a little mental scan. I do a little bit of breathing,
Yeah.
a little bit of that box breathing type stuff, just to and then get up out of bed and, go let the dog out. The dog is in a kennel overnight. I let the dog out and we lay down on the floor and we kind of hug and first thing in the morning. And that's interestingly, mentally, that's really nice. The dog is very affectionate. We just kind of roll around on the floor a little bit. He scratches my tummy, I scratch his, and we start our day that way. Then we go out for a walk.
Dogs are the best.
There's
so much therapy.
There is some therapeutic value to that dog, I suppose. You got a dog?
I do too.
Have you introduced our guest yet?
No, I haven't.
Well,
shall I?
Why don't you?
We are honored. We are so honored to have. I have notes here. Okay,
with his name on there.
Yes, and the date, and to remind myself where I am.
Right.
So I've known Jim Ambrose for long time.
How did you guys meet? Because you're not from our class, obviously.
No.
You're much younger and younger than us.
Probably when maybe down at Dundee.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The chair.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
I was seeking advice
20-some years ago, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
But, it's one of those things where you know somebody, but you don't know what they do, but you just like them. Mm-hmm. And same sense of humor and just kind of get along. And then 10 years into it, you kind of go, hey, what do you do anyway?
When you're out of other things to talk about, that's a last resort conversation for me.
And Jimmy's just one of those guys that just doesn't lead with that. How some people are so transactional.
Which is interesting because of the business that you're in. It is oftentimes the lead. So
I'll give you a little background.
Yeah.
So you've been with Merrill Lynch since 1998.
Yeah.
And before that, now correct me if I'm wrong, you were a personal injury lawyer.
I was not a personal injury lawyer, but I did, Yes, I practiced law for
Practiced
about 6
law.
years. Yeah,
No kidding. Where did you go to law school?
in Chicago.
Oh, no
Loyola
kidding.
of Chicago. Yeah,
University of Chicago.
Loyola of Chicago.
He's a Loyola
My
University.
son went to Loyola. I have a son that went to Loyola. Beautiful campus.
Yeah.
That on the lake campus or the downtown?
Well, the business school and the law school were downtown, so you would commute. But I lived up north
Very
on
nice.
the Lakeshore campus. Yeah,
Rogers Park.
yeah, Rogers Park,
Nice,
7 years,
man.
Nice.
undergrad in law.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had finance and philosophy
I did.
And the philosophy, tell me what the thinking was there.
You know, there was a Jesuit priest who ended up marrying Jean, my wife Jean, and he was a chaplain on the soccer team. He was just around a lot, and he was sort of this world-renowned philosophy guy. And he was the one that said, "Hey, finance is great, but you're at a Jesuit school. You should probably think about taking some of these classes." And I would say he also tried to get his hooks in me. I think maybe he had designs on me becoming a Jesuit, but I'd been accepted to some law schools, and that was the plan. And then he convinces me to do a master's degree in philosophy. And so I made the mistake of calling my dad during his work hours, which was treacherous always, but more treacherous.
Verboten, do not call
when you were calling not to get advice, but to deliver this message that and I just remember at the time I thought the rudest thing he'd ever said, but now I think it's the funniest thing. I said, "Dad, I'm not going to law school. I'm going to get this master's degree in philosophy." And there was a pause followed by, "I don't know what you're going to do from 9 to 5, but you'll be great at the cocktail hours." And he hung up on me, and I went to law school. So
you did not get the master's degree?
I did a minor in philosophy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
I'm glad you've said that because you are obviously a very successful guy. My son has a philosophy degree from Regis out in Denver, also a Jesuit school.
Yeah.
And he's an incredibly bright, articulate young man. He's in Scotland right now. In fact, he was home visiting, and he said, "Well, I'm leaving Friday." It was probably Wednesday, and we're, "Oh, you going back to Denver?" "No, I'm going to Scotland." "Okay. By yourself?" "Yeah. Feel like going and seeing something." So,
What was the appeal to that? Is it just more soul searching, or is it?
he has this wanderlust
Okay.
quality, and he's also not a philosopher necessarily, but he's really well versed in philosophy.
But
and
that probably drew him.
maybe, I don't know. Fletcher is somewhat Scottish. We are from the British Isles, our people, So he's over there right now. He's in Glasgow today.
Huh.
He was in Edinburgh for about 5 days, and he's going to London for a few days. And I am not that guy. I am not an adventurous soul. I am not a risk taker.
Where'd he get that from?
He did not get it from me. I think he got it from my wife's mother, who was also very adventurous. But I am envious of him for that. Well, I envy both of my sons. They are both better men than me. So,
do you think that allowed you to think differently than maybe some people in your law school class, or were there a lot of philosophers?
There were not.
Because you went, was it Loyola Law School?
Undergrad and law.
And law,
yeah.
Okay.
I can't say that. I do think, the Jesuit education tries to make you a bit more well-rounded, and I can't point to anything in particular. I think it's given me a witty, crafty sense of humor that you get to appreciate. Just
all the time.
Yes.
So you graduate, you practice law for a while, and then walk us through the progression.
Meet and marry Jean. We have 4 kids, and my dad, who had just has had the most interesting life. He's 95, but he had gone to law school, clerked for a judge, became an FBI agent, married my mom. And I was born in New York City in '68, and he was a linguist for the FBI. And I think there was 4 kids in a 2-bedroom apartment, and my mom was an Iowa farm girl and said, "Hey, what's plan B here?" So they moved to Omaha, and he built the practice that I now lead from scratch, which is, as I think about when I have stresses, what he did, right? Which is to leave a pension job that he was good at, to come to a town where he knew no one, had no money, and just built it. And so I get to walk in the furrow he plowed. So it was weird when I told these partners at a nice law firm I'm leaving you to go do this. I think some of them were really quizzical, like, well, you'd leave law to go. But I knew my dad had worked hard, and I really didn't even know exactly what he did when I was, I knew what he did, but I didn't. And I just knew I wanted to, I was the only boy of 5, so I just knew I wanted a chance to work with him, not look back and wonder what that would have been. And 25 years later, the practice has changed quite a bit. He was sort of a portfolio manager, brilliant. And I got there and said, we got a problem. I mean, if, you know, I'm the guy figuring out whether IBM's buy it, whatever. And he really let me build a like a parallel practice.
Really?
Yeah. So that's the journey.
So he started this, and he saw a gap of some kind in the service offering in Omaha, right? He started basically in Omaha.
Yeah.
And how did that evolve? I mean, because he had to make a call to somebody.
You know, I think at the time, Merrill Lynch, which is where he built this practice, hired a lot of former servicemen, a lot of former FBI agents, because I think they knew they were getting, for the most part, people of good character. And I can't say that his was as sophisticated as he saw a gap. I think he said he needed a job. He had 4 kids, and he has a funny story. I think he had a chance to work for Charlie Heider, who has had a wonderful journey, or Merrill Lynch, and he built something wonderful at Merrill Lynch. But obviously, if you live in Omaha, Nebraska, where we're filming today, the other choice would have been pretty good too.
Yeah. Not bad.
Yeah.
Right. That could have
So he
worked
started
out
as a stock picker, basically?
Yeah,
and
I would say
just
that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, and he was really, really good at it.
And built a business around that,
Yes.
where people would say, well, I really don't know, but can you help me pick 4 or 5 stocks? And would he manage the funds for them?
Yeah,
Or,
that really
okay.
was. It was as simple as that. And I think he just had to grind.
Yeah.
So I think I still meet people out in western Nebraska that went to a seminar that he would put on. And he had some credibility. I mean, he was a little, you know, whatever you're in, you're trying to differentiate yourself. And he had a background in finance. He was fluent in some languages. He had worked for the FBI. He was a lawyer. And so there was a story of trust. And he just did what it's so hard to do. Like in my world, the attrition it's a wonderful business to be in people's lives and giving financial advice. But it's so hard to start from scratch. And I have enormous respect for people that are able to do it. That wasn't me. I'd still be practicing law, but for him, allowing me to join him and grow it.
Now, a lot of great businesses evolve. They have to, or they die. And so you come in and you learn, first of all, from a great man.
Yeah.
You saw good habits, good opportunities as well. How did you begin to maybe put your thumbprint on this business?
Yeah.
And by the way, we're talking about money today. So,
I thought we were here talking about health.
for a lot of people, it's kind of poke your eyes out, boring. They're like, oh my God, not this.
Yeah.
But I think for people of our age and our age group, it's important because you realize it's a dwindling asset, and it either can continue to grow and provide for you, or it goes away. And if you have great people like Jim helping you, you realize, all right, they're in my corner.
You have a much better chance of making this work.
I can't do it on my own. Yes, I can probably do a lot of this stuff with Schwab, and I can read everything online, but unless you understand the big picture and you have someone like him, not financial advice, not giving financial advice, you know, we're just providing an opportunity to learn. And to me, I love these great stories where someone like Jim comes in and says, okay, I learned from my dad. I learned from all these great people. Now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think I had the epiphany, the St. Paul moment, whatever you want to call it, where I saw my dad adding value with that portfolio that he ran. He just was really good at picking stocks and managing money. And my epiphany was I had a degree in finance, but I saw the world changing, Vanguard blowing up, and I just thought that, and we had heart-to-heart talks, that I I thought there was an avenue to provide maybe more holistic advice, right? For me to outsource some of the actual buy-sell decisions and be in people's lives on sort of the more macro issue. How much risk should you be taking? What measures did you take in contemplation of the Hasebrook plan being interrupted? And so I went to him and said, I think I need to kind of go back to school. And I had said after the bar exam, I'd never take another test. But I really think that we got to be lifelong learners. And for me, it was to take the certified financial planner and to get the SEMA designation. And so then I felt like I was in a better position to help my dad's clients and the new ones that I was attracting to marry up investment management with financial planning. And I think have really to encourage families to have a good board of directors, right? Whether it's a great physician, a great tax person, a great lawyer, and then earn my right at the table by kind of wrapping myself around all of those.
Do you find that you're counseling these families on more than just financial planning at the same time?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. Our team, we laugh, but we take it very seriously. It feels like you're in the concierge business, right? Where people are asking you, they'll come in and somebody's got a diagnosis of cancer and you've got clients that work at the med center and you're certainly not weighing in on it, but you're just a resource for a lot of different things, certainly at its core about finance, right? But
trust.
But trust. I mean, if we're doing it right, we're at our clients' happiest moments and most challenging moments. If you've really, and I can't say you have it with every individual client. Some people say, go build me a portfolio and I want to see you once a year.
Right.
But we really want a different relationship so that, for example, I'll just say, to pick on the accounting world for a second, I feel like there's a shortage of good CPAs. So I find, because they're busy post Sarbanes-Oxley. So it's not a shot at them, but they're busy. And they're sending tax returns over to India to be prepared. And so what I guess I would say is I think there's a gap to fill, right? Where if we're in our clients' lives, I always tell my team, I think we can add 0.4% in value to their life every year, or 0.5, whatever the fee is. And I'll just give you an example of in the last year, a couple of them where, ideally they're talking to their CPA about this, but sometimes they're in your office and they're saying, we had a long-term care policy that took care of my wife for 8 years. It expired. And now I've got $100,000 of unreimbursed medical bills. Well, if we're in their lives and we're meeting with them, we know about that sort of in real time, which then allows us to raise a red flag and say, go see your CPA and let's start doing planning around the fact that we now have this deduction for the first time that we've never had. There's
so many nuances that
really
you
are.
Don't think about every day. And I think I mentioned to you that my wife and I went and talked to our estate lawyer, which sounds so arrogant, but it's it's just like we haven't visited with him for 15 years. I was shocked when I saw him. I was like,
you haven't been listening to the program.
But B, it's like, wait a sec. He starts laying stuff out like, well, long-term care can be anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000. And so I go, okay, $10,000. It's okay. We could probably handle that. He goes, per month.
Okay.
I was like, okay. And
expensive.
And you think that, well, that's so far away for us. I mean, we don't have to worry about it. You got to bring your team in together to just talk about these things.
Yeah.
And you kind of go, wait a sec. Can we even do this?
right.
How? The last thing you want to do is burden your son in Scotland with, I got to move into long-term care and
right.
I don't have any money.
Right.
Yeah, that's not on my plan, truthfully. I keep a 45 in my drawer. and I say this somewhat in jest, but
No, you're going to do it.
I'm not planning on going into a facility. Now, having said that, let me retract that a little bit. My mother is in an assisted living facility, and it's great. She gets great care. She has lots of friends. There are a lot of activities, and she has a really good quality of life. So I probably shouldn't jump the gun like that.
Literally.
to the gun like that. Maybe I'm talking more of like critical nursing care as opposed to assisted living, which is actually a very nice environment, at least in some situations. My mother's fortunate enough to have a nice situation, and I think it's been good quality life. I think she's enjoying herself. So,
but
maybe
it's like
that was too
when you
quick.
bring Jim in, it might be too late. You got to be doing that.
Yeah,
like,
I don't think that's something that you do in the moment. I think that
just
would
goes
require
with
a little
the planning
bit
because things
of
change.
pre-planning. Yeah, and things can change, unfortunately, quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're in an accident,
Right.
and now you require care, or all of a sudden you are diagnosed with something that is fairly, late term, perhaps, and you aren't prepared for that. So it can. I was just thinking about, I have life insurance. I was going to say, of course, but I shouldn't say, of course, because perhaps not everyone has life insurance. But it is a term policy that will, I think, expire at 70.
Yeah.
And
that's right.
I'm 65, and so 5 more years, and then do I renew, or am I done with life insurance? And hopefully I've got enough set aside that I wouldn't.
Get it. It's kind of like after.
If you can even get it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, there are a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Financial planning for me, who I'm not a financial guy. I am definitely not a money guy. I don't know much about money and understand it very well. I run a business on napkins, basically, and notes on my, I have like big whiteboards on the walls, and I just write, I'm a very visual guy. And so, but I'm not a great strategist. And so we have people that help us with money. And just like you were describing, you have a relationship with these people, hopefully, certainly if you want one. And so you confide things in them that may not be a business related. We're confiding things that are more personal, and you're talking about your dreams and your aspirations. Having someone that you can have a relationship with is really important, I think,
because it's lifelong, right? I mean, it's kind of.
I think if we're doing it right,
ideally,
it's right now we have a lot of second and third generation families, right? But you got to earn it. You have to earn it. You have to figure out ways to create value, and so you have to become knowledgeable. Or we built a nice team around me that is the talent to answer questions like this. Like for a family that says, "Do I need long-term care insurance?" Well, you got to have a framework, and like a bullet point there that over time I've kind of created is that, if you have less than $500,000 or more, $500,000 of investable assets, or more than $5 million, I don't think you're a candidate, right? If you have less than $500,000 of investable assets, you really can't afford the premiums. And if you have more than $5 million, I think you might be able to self-insure, right, with the income. So my point is only that you got to surround yourself, whether it be me who doesn't know anything about healthcare. I've got to have a physician that I trust. You've got to have a tax person that you trust, right? You've got to have an estate planning person.
It really is a team of people.
I do think that. And I think it really permeates. I mean, it's all levels of balance sheet. Certainly the upper 1% probably have more choices, right? But I think every family needs people to whom they can turn and say, what do we do here, right? Do we sell this house to protect some assets so that we can pay for long-term care? Do we try to find a good Medicare facility? We're just talking about long-term care there. But my point is only that you guys have built this fun podcast to talk about health and how you can prepare for later on in life. And I think much of what we do in finance, right, is to try to encourage people that, the best time to plant a tree was yesterday. So let's get started, right? Let's, in your 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, I really think you just put your head down, find something that you're passionate about, hopefully find a human to share it with, live within your means. But then when we hit our 50s and 60s, right, if we've done all those things right and we've lived within our means and we've taken risk, thoughtful risk, and saved, boy, at 50, you really do need to start keeping better score, right? My analogy is you play basketball growing up in the YMCA, and I had this boy that my son Michael, who just hated the fact. He always wanted to know who's winning. He was not a bad sport, but I tell you what, he was not buying into, hey, we tied. There was always a score there. I know you raised it.
We lost, but it was a good effort. No.
But I think in your 50s, you know, I think you want to have somebody tell you, am I on track for whatever it is that I want?
Right.
I call it, I don't use the word retirement anymore because it's just, I see so much less of that. I call it financial freedom to either be tethered to whatever it is that you're doing or have the freedom to keep working if you want. But I just think the day and age of, you know, our parents, many of our parents and grandparents, you know, worked to 59, got a watch, got a pension for a couple of years, a social security system that was built for 62-year-olds and not 90. Those days are over. I love seeing my clients with some of the most interesting second acts, right? Not because they have to, but because they just don't want to age at Hy-Vee. No disrespect. Hy-Vee has a lovely breakfast.
Lovely.
Yes,
lovely
they do.
breakfast.
Wonderful breakfast.
But I mean, I look and I'm not, but I don't know that I'm the guy that's going to sit around a table with 12 guys. I don't begrudge anyone who does it, but I see less and less of that.
Yeah, that was an interesting description. I appreciated your description of that because that's exactly what Mark and I have been talking about since he and I have become reacquainted and just having these conversations. Neither of us I don't ever think about retirement. I don't long for retirement. It's not even on my radar. Like you described, I do long for the freedom to do things with my wife and family differently, more frequently, you know, less structurally. I mean, you know.
Yeah, it's so true.
But retirement's...
I think there's more people like us than
for sure.
You think too, and you run into it.
Yeah,
I was at this thing in Washington called the Age Tech Collaborative, and it's technology that's geared towards seniors. You know, so new things that allow them to live.
My iron lung and stuff like that. You mean, or
no? These are things that just kind of make your life better, but also, you know, how do you interact with your kids more, and how do you, you know, both social things, but technology to do that, and just live a better life. And, you know, so physically there might be some limitations, but mentally people are doing second, third, and fourth acts. And how many people are starting businesses in their 60s, 70s, and even 80s, and just saying, and you know, I'm not retiring. This is my financial freedom. But underlying all of that, and what made me think of having Jimmy on here, is that the underlying theme to a lot of this was people just saying, I ignored this piece. You know, I paid attention to the health. I paid attention to the connectivity with friends and family and all that. I ignored my money, you know? And so I
don't think that's terribly uncommon.
Yeah, it's got to be something that's interjected a lot sooner, I think.
Yeah. I hear people say that a lot, and then they come in and they've shown me that, you know, they've done it on their own, which they think is tantamount to ignoring it. But if they've lived within their means and they've paid down and they've paid off a mortgage and they've fully funded retirement plans and helped kids matriculate through college, they feel like they haven't met with a financial advisor and they feel like maybe they haven't paid enough attention to it, but they've done a lot right. And I think they've baked a good cake. Now, there's no question that later on in our lives, right, when we hit our 50s and 60s, and we don't want to start over, right? Nobody wants to see the wealth they've created evaporate. We do encourage them to think about their balance sheet a little differently. We do encourage them to answer the question, how much do I need given these articulated goals? And then at least make a purposeful decision about how much risk they're taking, right? Because I think in your 30s, 40s, and 50s, you tell your kids, get a job you like, save, pay yourself first, do it tax efficiently, participate, grab all the low-hanging fruit. We tell them that, and that's not ignoring it. It maybe isn't really purposeful scorekeeping planning that I think does become critical in our 50s, because I just think people want to know, am I on track? If I think that $15,000 a month, hypothetical number, dumped into my operating account is going to allow me to live the life I want and not, or maybe to bounce their last check or have a legacy to the kids. They want those answers. And I think 25 years ago, the tools were really poor. It was hard to answer this question. I mean, tonight, if you go on the internet and you say, Hasebrook, we'd like $10,000 a month, and with 8 kids, that's never going to happen. Sorry, Mark, but and here's our balance sheet. Here's what we have, right. And then the internet will tell you plug in a rate of return assumption, right. And then if it's a really sophisticated tool, it'll say and give us what's the rate of return assumption once you retire. Mm-hmm. But that's a good place to start. But what does it miss? It just misses. Mm-hmm. Volatility, because I don't have any portfolios that grow 4 or 6% lockstep every year. It misses sequence of returns. What happens if Mark gets a really crummy return in that first year of retirement? That's way more punitive. So my point is, only in your 50s and 60s, I find that there are a few people that have absolutely ignored it, right, and leased cars and haven't built equity in their and lived great audacious lives, right. But mostly in the Midwest, which is where 85% of our practice is, people have done things, they just don't feel organized about it, and they don't feel like they have a plan. And I think that's what people ache for.
I would totally agree with that. And I think in many aspects of our lives, we're looking for that affirmation from someone that we've done a good job or we're doing it correctly. I get calls from my clients all the time. They know the answer. They just want they want to hear me agree with them. You know, is this the right thing? Did I do the right thing? Yeah, I think you did the right thing. But we just sat down, as you just mentioned, my wife and I sat down with our financial folks probably within the last year and did just what you've described. We actually sat down and we had never done that before, but we really drilled down into what our hopes and how much money will we need, and to try to really figure out how much money is going out, fixed expenses.
Well, that's not a fun exercise, is it? Nobody likes that at the Ambrose house.
It was really eye-opening. I was just, I had to get up and leave the room, I mean, it's just freaking me out.
Yeah.
But it was an important exercise.
Yes.
It brought a little bit more clarity to both of us.
Yeah.
Because, and that's important.
How do you, based on that though, what are some of the biggest mistakes you've seen people make? Or
are there misconceptions or misassumptions that people are making, or anecdotally, can you share any of those?
Yeah, I mean, names. Yeah, Jim Ambrose, Jim and Jean Ambrose,
right? Of course.
People do start late, right? We all know the time value of money, right? If we can teach the people that we love, our kids, nieces, and nephews, that we need to pay ourselves first, and we need to grab the low hanging fruit. That is a problem, right? But I'll tell you what, this is going to be a little wacky for you. There are so many things that the insurance world has figured out a way to protect from. So I just remember when Jean announced that she was pregnant with our Michael, right? Boom. Now I need life insurance. Go out and do that. Now I need some disability insurance. Kid drivers, we have a rite of passage in our house. It seems like I think 3 out of 4 on their 16th birthday crashed. So, umbrella policies. Right. There's insurance to solve for a lot of things. But I'll tell you what, the one place that you really, it just is a financial plan destroyer is divorce, right? It's just a fact of life, right? There's very, I guess you could call a prenup a little bit of an insurance, but you don't see many of those in a first marriage, right? And I would just mention that when I think about the marriage prep that our church did for Jean and Jim, it was pretty nonchalant. We were 28. We didn't have much to fight about. But I do think, when I drill down and I see it, divorce can be caused by a bunch of different things, right? Addiction and abuse. But the big thing is finance, right? Mm-hmm. It's the data suggests that half of the marriages are ending. And when you drill down, the great majority of them are because of matters of finance. And so,
and when you say that, are you referring to just differences in
absolutely
between the two partners?
How to manage?
Think of the stress that occurs at a house when I was lucky to marry Jean, and I'll never forget when we were dating. She was working at this law firm, and she picked me up that night. And I just remember seeing on her, she had this obnoxious passed me down Lincoln Continental, and she was 4'11", but she had, it had the best air conditioner.
Nice.
But it broke every week. Mm-hmm. But I just remember there was 4 paychecks from her law firm, because that was before direct deposit. I was like, what do we got here? What are you doing? She's like, I haven't had a chance to deposit. So you've been working for free for 8 weeks. And I just remember going, oh, wow. Like, that seems to be an issue that we should talk about. You know?
Right.
But my point is, there's everybody has do-overs, right? We all want to encourage our kids to start saving, but there's some other things, like you can't, for example, control who you fall in love with, right? But you can put yourself on the side of probability by having great discussions that, hey, I got raised in a family that paid cash for cars before they just didn't believe in debt. Oh, you got raised in a family, and this is not Gene and Jim, but like that, live paycheck to paycheck. We got to reconcile this stuff, because the data suggests that eventually that's going to cause problems unless you address it. And so, for example, we talk to people that, oh, you fell in love with somebody whose family maybe spent live paycheck to paycheck. Okay, what can we do? Because half of what we do is talking to the next generation. Oh, well, put measures to protect your marriage in this issue. Do a 15-year mortgage, which is kind of like a forced savings policy. I don't love permanent insurance, but embedded in that is a forced savings policy. Over withhold, so you get this very conspicuous refund. My point is only that's not Jim trying to figure out whether Amazon's a buy at 120, but I think those holistic ideas and solutions can help a young couple get on a better foundation, and I just think that's where
I like that.
That's awesome.
Anyway,
it goes to health. I mean,
it really does.
If you're stressed over money and you don't talk to your partner about it, I mean, it's just silly. And yet, it's probably the single biggest mistake, and it doesn't come up. And then when it does come up, it is an explosion.
Yes.
And boy, I mean, you talk about trying to eliminate stress in your life. Whether you have any money or you have lots of money, I mean, the problems are the same, it seems.
Yes. And I would actually argue you would think that the bigger the balance sheet, the less problematic it is, but that's not the case.
I would imagine
Yeah. So how did we get on that little sojourn, Mark? Bring me home.
Yeah, I don't know, but I think that's a great conversation.
Well, I think we were talking about mistakes, and I don't hear many financial planners. Like, for example, we started 2 years ago doing what we called a college send-off for all of our clients. And it was inspired by a guy that I really respect. Now, his clients are different than mine. So I saw him, and I said, he challenged me. What are you doing, Jim, for your clients' most important assets? And I said, well, your clients all have net jets or private. What do you mean? He's like, no, dummy, it's their kids. He said, can I make a suggestion? And he said, that adage that you're only as happy as your least happy child is so true. And so he said, okay, that big step of leaving high school and going to college, do a send-off where you're not talking to them about finance. I named mine the 168-hour conundrum, right? Which is, okay, you've been in high school, West Side or Creighton Prep or Brownell or Millard North has had your butt in a seat from 8 to 3. If you had any kind of activities, it was 8 to 5:30. If little Johnny wasn't in that first period class, Creighton Prep or Millard North was calling to say, where is he? You had a curfew. Your 168 hours were sort of managed, right? Mm-hmm. And so I've kind of created this little program, this little send-off to say, we got to own this, right? If you take a full schedule in college, you might take 16 hours or 17 or 18 hours. So there's one issue. There's no curfew. And so you're right. I think that financial wellness and happiness and health are all inextricably intertwined. And
should be on the front end of that conversation.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
That's really a good way to put it.
I kind of, I don't know why necessarily, because I have no aptitude with money, but I track all of the bank accounts electronically.
Yeah.
My mother's, although my sister-in-law, my brother's wife, is our CPA for the family. She takes
what a gift.
She takes care of the money.
Yeah.
And she's been incredibly helpful with all of us. But I see my son's accounts and those kind of things. And my older son, the guy that's in Scotland right now, my younger son has more money than I do.
Yeah.
He doesn't, he other than buying books.
Yeah.
That's all he spends his money on.
So good.
But
you can track that.
I see it. Yeah. Plus he's on our Amazon account. So my wife's like, he's ordering books again, or whatever. Well, that's another story. That's the Loyola kid.
Yeah.
But my older son, when he was at Regis, he would order, he found out about, the food delivery. What's the food delivery?
DoorDash.
DoorDash, Grubhub. So, and he was kind of a night guy, vampire like, so I'd see $15 worth of Chick-fil-A with a $30 delivery fee at 2 a.m. on Friday night. And I'm like, we're going to have a little talk about, and so.
Now there's the time value of money too.
Now that
positive spin, Mark. I like it. You're a glass half full guy.
Yes, it is. But these are.
I get it. Yeah,
but
I get it.
All of a sudden, and I'm not one to give great financial advice, but we're talking about that may not be the best use of your limited funds.
Yeah.
Spending $30 every third day for food delivery. Maybe go to the grocery store once a week or something. So
yeah.
Things that I wasn't confronted with that. That wasn't an issue. I had to walk to the Get and Go at 2 a.m. to get a microwave burrito when I was his age, but, so.
But did this
different
168 hours did that help set a foundation, do you think?
Well, we're only 2 years into the exercise, and then we send them little notes every once in a while. So I think there was 14 graduating seniors. Has it set a foundation? We got great feedback from the parents.
I'll bet.
Saying, you're never really a prophet in your own land. So when Mark's disseminating advice, when I am to my kids, it's just, I think a little of it sticks, but a lot of it is, there goes dad again. Yeah. But when a stranger comes up and says, look, 35% of the kids that start college aren't going to finish. And maybe this demographic's a little different because a lot of these kids have safety nets under them and successful parents that just aren't going to let them fail. But you've got this opportunity. And, oh, by the way, it's expensive. So how's it going? We got good feedback. The next iteration of it is to do something where they get their first jobs, right? Because many of them are, one, struggling to find a job, and then it's all about what's the salary, and we're trying to help them think about salary's important, but what else? I mean, what's the growth opportunity here? What's the learning opportunity? Maybe you want to take less because you got a chance to work with a legend, or, do you really understand your benefits package, right? They have this wonderful retirement plan, but maybe there's a 7-year vesting schedule. Right, exactly, yeah. So I just think when people ask me, Jim, you're at Merrill Lynch. I'm at Merrill Lynch because my dad needed to put a stake in the ground. And at the time, it was really hard to create your own shop. It was really unusual. There's 2 great examples in Omaha where Charlie Hyder did it. And I can't think of the other one. But my dad joined at Merrill Lynch. But why I've stayed is interesting because I think, they do some things, for example, better money habits. I mean, our bankers are out in schools. So I taught at Creighton for 10 years, and I was blown away by the accounting and finance kids that I would see as seniors that didn't know the difference between a Vanguard ETF and a mutual fund, or a permanent insurance versus term. And so we helped create a class really for the business school. But these ideas of education and getting to people early so that they can start baking that cake early can make all the difference.
It's like, you have Todd Smith as your fitness coach. You have somebody that helps you with taxes. It should be kind of a team approach, because I think at the end of the day, it gives you that self-esteem and confidence.
And accountability.
Each day you wake up and say, okay, if something happens today, at least I know all the pieces and parts are there. And to review where you stand because there's things that come up in everybody's lives where you say, hey, Jim, I got to sit down. Things have changed here. You know,
but I love what you're doing with the family. I think that's fantastic.
That's wonderful.
I really like that a lot. That first job, I can remember my first job, you know, when I get out of college, making $18,000 a year with no idea. Wow. That was a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
I know. And with no idea.
Yeah.
You know, my father was a hardworking guy, factory guy, but not sophisticated with money or investing necessarily. Those weren't the conversations we had. We usually had conversations more along the line of don't get her pregnant until you're married type things, you know, which is also important advice financially, come to find out. But so I had and I was a science guy. I didn't take any business classes. I didn't know anything.
Right.
And I think that giving that opportunity to those young people is really, I'm impressed by that. I think that's really valuable.
But if you think about what my competition isn't just other advisors. It's the fact that I believe, for the better, the world has become more transparent. The tools available for someone to do a lot of this on their own, I think are getting better all the time. So I have to figure out ways to create value to say, look, I can go build a 60-40 portfolio with Vanguard. So I'm competing with all the other good advisors. Then I'm competing with the do-it-yourself option, right? And so while I'm very proud of some of the stuff that we built, it's not as altruistic as you think. It's like I have to convince families that I can add 4/10 or, I mean, there's a Vanguard study that says, or it's Fidelity or Vanguard that says that the typical American has averaged about a 3.5% rate of return, and yet that popular stock market index, the S&P, is done 10. Well, the problem isn't the academics. I mean, you can have these models. The problem is that when left to our own devices, it's the emotional piece of it, right? When Silicon Valley Bank is failing and the news stories are your money's not safe and everything, you're getting bombarded with news that says, am I ready for this or should I be selling? That's where I think when I would teach these classes at Creighton, I would say, you know, there's room for financial advisors, but you gotta figure out how do you add that, whatever your cost is, how do you add that value? And I'm just giving you ideas that I think are helpful to families, but they're born of really me saying, I gotta what's my value proposition here? Because the investment widget is getting easier to do on your own unless you're in private equity or some of those things, right?
It's interesting. I know of my two sons, I've introduced them both to our family, and I'm sure that happens for you, like you said, multi-generational. Yeah. We've introduced them both to our financial advisors, and one of them is using them, and the other one's like, I can do this on my own. I don't need any help with it. And I was like, well...
And that may be true.
Check in periodically with them, right? Okay, just check in once a year or something so that you can have a discussion about how you're doing.
Right.
I mean, he seems to understand.
It's just eliminating fear, too.
As you said, then there's so many opportunities and stuff. But
there's so much out there.
Can I ask you a kind of do I need to be doing anything in preparation for the election, the upcoming elections? Like, should I bury all my money, cash it out and bury it? Or what should I, what do we do? I mean, it makes me a little bit nervous.
Sure. Well, I think
without being too political.
I mean, tonight again on the internet, you could go and Google sort of what happens if this happens, and the problem is there's not a lot of patterns that are reliable. So I just think it's a poor. I can't. You know, as people that have been very nervous for the last couple of months, if anybody went to cash, they've missed this incredible run up, right?
Right.
So, really, where we come at this is a little different, right? When we're meeting with a family, it's, we have to know their balance sheet, but we really try to get them to think about their balance sheet in 3 buckets, right? The never want to be poor bucket, which is very liquid. It's very safe. No advisor should really be charging on that. Sort of the market risk bucket where you have your public securities, and then sometimes families have aspirational buckets, right? Where they've got real estate or private businesses, right? Or concentrated stock positions. And what I'm militant about, because this 95-year-old grizzly bear that taught me was militant about it, is just making sure that this never want to be poor bucket, particularly when we hit our 50s, 60s, is filled up properly. And if it is, then I think it allows you to weather this, whether it's coming or not. I don't know. And if Warren
What
Buffett,
does the never want to be poor bucket consist of?
Well,
I mean, I don't want to get
love it. I mean, but it's cash. It could be home equity that you have access to. It's your riskless bucket. Now, it's hard sometimes to fund that, particularly from 2007 to 22 when you were getting paid zero on it, right? Mm-hmm. But what does that allow you to do? It allows you to take risk in other parts of your life and sleep well just when you have to do this, right? And so the special sauce, I think, is figuring out for a family what needs to be in that. And some of that's personal. Some of it is, oh my gosh, I'm a plaintiff's attorney and my comp can go like this and then I can starve for 2 years. Or I'm a venture capitalist and, every year's different. I'm a one income family or two. And some of it is just really trying to role play for a client. Like, how are you going to react if you wake up, you get out of your cold plunge and you see that buildings are burning and the stock market's closed and there's going to be some disruption? I mean, I really try to role play that to help them answer what needs to be in that never want to be poor bucket. Because I think the books get it wrong when they talk about
you
3
might
to
say, I'm going to transfer some stuff to cash just to be safe.
Well, what I would say is you don't do it in anticipation of a geopolitical event. It's a way of life.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Is that, and I'd say that bucket probably needs to be bigger when you don't have income, right? And so it's personal. But you wouldn't find our practice handicapping, who's going to win an election and is the Dems going to hold the Senate. I mean, and making decisions on that. Certainly different political regimes can have impact on earnings, but and earnings ultimately matter to stock prices. But that's not, we're trying to take this disciplined approach that if Mark says, Jane gets nervous. She knows I run a business over here, but she wants to see X dollars in this account. I think if you get that right, it's going to give you a lot of peace. And so that's where we start. Yeah.
It's just that we got exhale. Right.
And then when people retire, it's a completely different discussion where we're encouraging them to have not months, but let's have a couple of years of what you need to burn off to the side, not exposed to anything.
Interesting.
It makes the downturns a lot better. They're no fun. But as my old man would say, the good markets are never as good as they seem, and the bad markets aren't as bad, right? Because if we're in the accumulation phase of our life, these inflated prices that we have right now, you're buying at higher prices, and so I think it's about baking a good cake, starting early, checking on it, holding yourself to account, not making emotion-driven decisions, which we are all prone to. I don't care if you went to Harvard MBA. We have some of those clients, and sometimes those are the dangerous ones because they know better, right? Or they think they know better.
I think they know better, sure.
So I would just say we're all trying to take the emotion out of a lot of what we do. Our interactions with our families, which I would say sometimes I'm poor at doing, but our financial decisions, our healthcare decisions. We don't want knee-jerk reactions in any of this, right? We want a process that guides us through the challenging times.
Yeah, and it's back to just eliminating stress.
Well said.
I mean, it's just nice. Well, it's just not. We have too much stress, and it's self-induced half the time. It's just like maybe take a breath, and if you realize maybe your physical health is okay, and you're doing exciting, fun things to improve that, and you realize our financial health is okay. It probably can be better, but it probably could be worse. I think that just helps with your emotional stability. I
think having someone who can give you some affirmation, or at least, if not affirmation, direction, would reduce that stress significantly.
He's on your team.
I think me just sitting there worrying, am I doing the right thing, is incredibly stressful.
I think that's a great point. I think like when we're struggling with our health, sometimes you get peace when you get the diagnosis, right? And sometimes in finance, I see peace come over people when, even if you're giving them news that says, hey, you're a little behind, the fact that they know it, and then they get to make a purposeful decision. Are we going to save a little more? Are we going to work a little longer? Are we going to take a little more risk? I think that knowledge,
I totally agree.
Gives some peace.
Yeah,
it's worth a lot.
I totally agree. And so, your firm, you're located here in Omaha.
Yeah, I work at 132nd and Dodge with a team of 10 of us, and it's just
it's fantastic. You seem very inspired.
Well, I don't want to pretend. I mean, you see dark circles on a Friday. I'm ready for the weekend. I mean, right. I would say when you're in people's lives, you're with them during the best moments and the most challenging moments. This week, we have a couple clients that are, one's a divorce and one's a sudden death, and there's. But I do love what I do, and what's different about it than the law, which I tell people, is that I was in a great firm with great lawyers, but the way we've built a legal system is generally. We feel like this adversarial system, right? With the exception of estate planning attorneys, which are counselors, but litigation, which is what I was in, we figured out, and we think it's the best system in the world to do this. And Mark, you asked, what was your journey? That was hard for me. Trying cases was a great weight loss program, tying this back to health, but I couldn't sleep. And what I love about what I do, and it's not perfect, but I have a great team with really good people that when people call in, they know the person answering the phone cares, right? And it's just this collaborative process, which is different than what the first 5 years of my professional life was like, because I just wasn't built for. I marvel at people that can go compartmentalize that. I was going to be kind of a crappy father and husband if I would have stayed on that journey.
Yeah, and that's good to recognize that too. Most people don't, and they wake up and they're our age and kind of go, God, what was that all about?
Yeah.
What did I just do?
I think interestingly, all of our businesses are relational. We're building relationships with people. We're providing some assistance where we can, maybe a little bit of direction, but
very true.
But I think all of my long-term clients are friends. They're all people I care about. You feel like part of their family, their business family, and you certainly want them to succeed.
Yeah.
And so if you've got somebody like that on your side, I think you're doing well.
Yeah.
That's a great thing.
I mean, as we think about where we're all going, if you have a little bit of wealth to do what you want, what gives you joy, whether it's taking the kids to their grandkids to the first trip to Disney or having a little lake house that you can go to. But then we have plenty of clients that have the wealth but no health. And it's magical when you got both. And you just can't take it for granted, right?
Right.
But what I've kind of enjoyed as I've gone back and listened to a few of your podcasts is just it's about taking measures now to put us on the side of probability. Nobody knows what the good Lord's going to give us, but take these measures to try to get yourself on the side of probability that you're going to have some health to enjoy the hard-earned wealth. And that's the magic of it.
Making it last, making the health last as long as you can, and the wealth last as long as you can.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's been a good life.
Yeah. Well, like my friend Peter Attia told me, well, he's not really my friend.
Wait, that's the MD guy?
Yeah. Do you read Peter Attia?
Well, I've seen him on Joe Rogan. I mean, I really enjoy listening to him.
He's on everything. A really, really bright, articulate guy. But he wrote that book, Outlive. I don't know if you've read that book or not. But his point is, why are we waiting until we start to have symptoms before we address these longevity issues? Start now, start early. The same is true financially. Start early, start now. If you haven't started, start today. Ideally, we would have started yesterday, but don't wait until you start to show symptoms of financial ruin or ill health or whatever that is. So I think, it's really, they're all inseparable. I mean, you want to be financially and physically able to enjoy whatever this last
you can't rely on a lot of this, like Social Security and all that. It's probably going to go away. It's just like
what that's another conversation.
55 minutes into this, he drops the scud.
I was going to say, I'm counting on.
What about Social?
I'm counting on some Social Security in a few years.
It'll be there for you. And,
I'm sure it will.
But having the right team. I mean, that's the bottom line. I mean, if it gives you that confidence, you wake up each day, you do your health check of your body, and you just kind of go, mentally, also, I'm in a good spot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think funds are there, life insurance is there, family's taken care of. I'm going to take care of my body. You have a different outlook on life.
Yeah, what could be better?
Yeah, you just do.
I think that's
so,
ideal.
You know, I guess the takeaway is a guy like Jim can be a real key asset for your team.
Yeah.
You know, you can't do it. Speaking of teams, you know, a team like Omaha Westside, who has tied the state record for number of wins at 28.
Not with our year.
But they
we did not have that.
They beat their crosstown rival last night, Creighton Prep, which sadly Creighton Prep has devolved into, like, I think they're a chess school now. I'm going to get my shots in, but you know, it's one of those
soccer power though.
Soccer power.
Yeah, but they educated all of our children.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, shh, stop it.
So.
But it's great to know that you have someone like that on your team, as part of your advisory group. You can talk to them as often as you want.
Call anytime, 24/7. I'm sure.
That's funny. I mean, we do. Yeah. All joking aside, one of my partners has 4 kids under 5, and we say he's got the night shift.
I'll bet it, because he's up anyway.
He's got the beeper.
Yeah.
But that's great. I mean, it's great advice. It gives you that confidence. That's at the end of the day, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. That's fascinating. And I was just trying to envision what your cocktail party banter would be.
I'm pretty boring.
No, I was going to say, you're incredibly articulate.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah.
No, I love your choice of words, your vocabulary, and some of the
proud West Side guy.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is really inspiring to me, just to have 3 West Side graduates, each of which can form a complete sentence.
Yes.
I mean, this is
not
a big
all at
deal.
once, but
Well,
Well, I would say on that front, none of the 9 people on our team, full-time people on our team, have a marketing background. So we joke that we probably are the worst. In fact, I can tell you at one point, I think the way I met Mark was I knew he had an interest in e-commerce. So I just was like, all right, I'm going to start sending Mark Hasebrook these e-commerce things that, and every once in a while he replies like, that's interesting. And then the other ones probably went in the garbage. But you do have to find something you love. And I'm glad that you can hear it in my voice, because I'm lucky. When I joined my dad, I really didn't know what I was signing up for, right? I just knew I wanted to work with him. And not wonder what that would have been like.
Yeah.
And the greatest gift he gave me is to say, Jim, if you need to go back to school, if you need to learn some additional skills to build an adjacent practice, do it.
Do it, right?
And
awesome.
And he that was a great gift. And I do walk in the furrow that he plowed. What he did was very brave.
But you got to realize there's people following you as well. So people are saying, okay, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, they're going to say, well, Jim Ambrose,
right?
I'm walking in the field that he plowed. And if it weren't for him, and so you do that with your clients in the looking forward, but you got to realize there's people behind you that you're touching their hearts and lives and with your advice, and even people that you impact with the families and the advice that you give. You're leaving those little seeds behind you. And that's the thing I find, guys our age, we don't realize.
Yeah.
You kind of turn around and go, oh, wait a sec.
Yeah.
I got to watch what I say, but also the things I do is really influential and important to some of those. 99% of the time, maybe it falls on deaf ears. But there's probably somebody in your firm or someone that you've worked with who said, because of him, just like you give credit to your dad. So,
yeah. Thank you.
I think it's very real. Same with you.
Jeez, man.
Making him cry on his 65th birthday.
Right.
That's his gift to you.
Yes. Oh, my God.
That's touching. Awesome. Hopefully we're all
I'll be 65 in 1 month. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. 1 month.
We'll redo this in a month?
We'll do this.
You're in November?
Awesome.
I am, yeah. We'll do, what should we do on testosterone or something?
I'm game.
OT. Jimmy, thanks, man.
Fun to be here.
Yeah.
It's really great to meet you, man.
Yeah.
Really great to
Awesome.
meet you. I enjoyed the conversation. I hope we can have it again at some point.
All of his contact info, if you ever want to reach him, they'll be in the show notes.
The show notes, yeah. Nice.
And we'll talk to you guys soon.
Yeah, have a great weekend, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Later.
Bye.